What's going on, everybody? We are back, Mike and Matt from New York Sports Rehab, and obviously Week 5, a lot to talk about. A couple things going on actually today. We're going to recap the Jets and Falcons across the pond in London today. Some negatives, some positives, mostly negatives. Same old stuff that we've seen for the past decade now, but also some positives. We got the Rangers starting back in about, I want to say, 8 days. I want to say the 19th, or not the Rangers, the Knicks. Starting back in about 8 days, the 19th. And then we got the New York Rangers dropping the puck tonight against the Washington Capitals. So a lot of stuff going on this fall, football slash MLB playoffs slash NHL slash NBA. Great time to be a sports fan. And, hopefully the Rangers and the Knicks somewhat can bail us out a little bit in terms of the Mets and Jets disappointment. So with that being said, guys, we'll hop right into it. Going, back to this Sunday across the pond, Jets and Falcons. Pretty ugly football game, I'd say, in more aspects than one from both sides. Jets had more than one, more than two, more than three opportunities to not only win the game, but make it more competitive of a ball game it was, because I think the final score doesn't necessarily kind of show you how much the Atlanta Falcons dominated that game. But meanwhile, the Atlanta Falcons didn't look as dominant, but the Jets just, through 2 quarters of football, couldn't get anything going. I know we'll touch on some of the specifics here in a second, but, 5 weeks into the season, 79 total yards in the first quarter for the New York Jets. Zach Wilson showed some things that, you see the athleticism, you see the flick in the wrist, you see the power of the arm, but some of the short stuff and some of the intermediate throws and the throws that, a guy, even though you're 21, 22 years old, second overall pick should be making. So a little bit of a frustrating Sunday considering, we were up 8:30, ready to watch the game by 9:30. But one thing I will say is, by 1 o'clock when most of the other games were starting, we were kind of getting already patching up the wounds and getting over it already. So, Dad, I'll go ahead, pass it to you. We'll kind of get into the specifics here in a minute. But in terms of, your overall thoughts on the game, what can you give us?
Well, it's the same old as far as how the Jets start out. If the Jets had even an average offensive performance throughout the first 5 games, they could easily be 3-2 right now and not 1-4. They could have beaten Carolina, and they certainly could have beaten Atlanta with even just a minimal amount of offense. And that's really been the story of the season. This team is not equipped good enough. They don't have a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes to come back and come back from behind each week and win these games. They don't have a captain comeback right now. And really, that's what it comes down to. The disappointment, not only in the offense, but historically inept in the first quarter and the first half. I don't know how this offense compares historically. I don't know if they keep records on that. But in the first quarter this year, through 5 games, the Jets have 0 points scored. They have 5 first downs in 5 games. They have, I believe it's 79 total yards in 5 games combined for an average of like 15.8 yards per game in the first quarter. 15 yards in the first quarter. Average amount of plays, I think is somewhere around 8 or 9. So do the math. They're averaging about a yard and a half a play in the first down. These have got to be historical. I mean, obviously no points. You can't get any worse than that. But less than 100 yards total offense in 5 games. That's 5 quarters. That equates out to a game and a quarter with less than 100 yards combined and 0 points. You want to go even further and break it down by the half? The Jets have 1 touchdown in 5 games in the first half. I believe yardage-wise, opponents have something like 1,030 yards of total yardage to the Jets 400 in the first half. That's just incredible, and I would love to see how that compares historically to other teams, if that's ever happened before. So clearly the issue was the first half and the first quarter, and it's just mind-boggling because you look at Adam Gase, and as bad as he was, the one thing that he was able to do was put together a script to come out and move the ball in the first series or the first couple. After that, he was shot. He couldn't readjust. But you've got all week to prepare for a team, in this case, the Falcons, who are defensively flawed, as we talked about already. And you watch tape on them and you see the liabilities that they have on defense, and you cannot come up with a scripted offense that could at least get you going in the first quarter. It's beyond belief to me. I know some of it is execution. You can't be bouncing passes to open running backs and receivers out of the backfield. You can't be throwing to receivers from behind. You can't be falling down on your routes. You can't be missing blocks on blitzes. I realize that. But at the same time, to not be, and we're not even talking about, well, they gained 30, 40 yards and had a punt. We're talking 3 and out twice, first quarter. And this is not the first time. And by that time, you've already put your defense in a hole. You've put your team in a hole. And it comes down to that. The Jets have got to come up with some way to at least come up with enough of an offensive script to keep the offense on the field at least long enough to where you at least use up some of the clock and give your defense a chance to rest and only allow the offense of the other team so much time to score. And I've never seen anything like it, but that's the main issue right now. If you want to break it down thoroughly, yeah, the offense overall has not done the job, but it's a matter of coming out, doing something, and your first and second series, moving the ball, using the clock, moving the chains, getting some first downs, getting a tempo going, and doing something here to offset this 5-game stretch where you can't score a point and you've got less than 100 total yards. So I'll break down things a little further on our next go round as far as the officiating goes and things that happen late in the game with the defense. But my overall initial assessment of the whole thing is the Jets are historically bad in the first quarter. And just when you thought you hit rock bottom with Todd Bowles, then came Adam Gase. And then when you were certain you hit rock bottom with Adam Gase, and I know LaFleur is young, but we're seeing an historically bad, inept offense in the first quarter and the first half of the Jets right now, and they got to figure out a way to right the wrong.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's really, and as a fan and, someone that's trying to watch the game for more reasons than just, enjoyment purposes. Obviously, we watch it because we're Jets fans, but we kind of pick things apart and we kind of look at things, and we know heading into whether Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever we record, some of these things we're going to say. And, some of the big topic of the first quarter was not only could the Jets not get off the field, but when they got the ball, they couldn't stay on the field. The 2 3 and outs, I think, obviously I'll touch on that, roughing the passer call in a second, but the 2 3 and outs were detrimental to the entirety of the game, because the Jets were on the field. I want to say out of the first 15 minutes of the first quarter, I want to say they were on the field for 12 and a half minutes. And obviously you had to deal with the roughing of the passer call, in my opinion. We've said it before. We've said it, a couple seasons. You've had some good, you had some bad. Not even in terms of the Jets, in terms of all the NFL games I've watched, I'd say we're 5 weeks in. I've probably watched somewhere from 20 to 30, maybe north of that, football games, and officiating is at an all-time low. It's unquestionable. You watch it, and it seems like every single game, whether it's prime time, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, Thursday night football, it's being dictated by the refs in some way, some form, some fashion. So, you talk about a team like the Jets struggling on offense, especially to initiate the game. That doesn't help. You start the game, you get 2 great plays from your defense, and then it's third down. Matt Ryan looks to be pressured, and they get that call on Quincy Williams for roughing the passer. You watch it live, you didn't see anything. You watch the replay, you didn't see anything. The announcers are questioning the call. The announcers mentioned, well, he wasn't late, so it must have been him putting all of his weight on Matt Ryan towards the end of the pass rush. Well, that's not even the case. NFL analysts, Twitter analysts, the guys that break down these plays and break down film on Twitter or social media and share it to the rest of the world, have all consistently agreed that not only did Quincy Williams time the hit perfectly, he leveled the hit perfectly, hit him square in the chest, no head-to-head contact, and even on his way down, Quincy Williams uses his hands to break his fall. And that's 4 or 5 different things going in on one different play in terms of protecting the quarterback, and he's penalized either way. And you said it best when we were watching the game. The ref sent a message out. Do not hit the quarterback. Do not touch the quarterback. And, with a team like the Jets, we saw that front seven. We saw that pass rush practically eliminated right from the get-go. That front seven could not do anything in terms of pass rush or even the run game. The physicality of the game was wiped out early. We saw Cordell Patterson, who's been a running back, I think, for 3 weeks now, carve them up. Kyle Pitts, through 4 weeks, put him on a milk carton. Lo and behold, we got the Jets, and then they were already down their 2 receivers, and he's got 118 receiving yards. But, one thing about the Jets defense is they've, worked with this bend, don't break approach. And we even saw that this Sunday. It was just the ineptitude on offense of how much they were on the field. You couldn't have asked them to do more, especially in those first couple quarters. One thing I will say on the defensive side of the ball that was really frustrating, we saw a couple 3rd and 11s. We saw a 3rd and 21 last week. We saw some 3rd and 5s. There's no reason on a 3rd and 5 you must get off the field, that you've got cornerbacks lined up 8 yards off the ball, that you got linebackers lined up 6 yards off the ball. We saw Patterson time and time again, Pitts time and time again, wide open across the tight ends that I think Bart Scott described them best on SNY postgame. Glorified tackles. We saw them getting open in space, wide open. So the Jets didn't have an answer defensively for Matt Ryan. You said it last week time and time again that you were concerned because a good quarterback, no matter the weapons he has, can make a young or inexperienced secondary or defense as a whole looked pretty bad, and that's exactly what he did. It wasn't a perfect game from Ryan. Obviously, if he would have had a complete group of weapons, I think that he could have had an even better game. But you saw he was combating that pass rush by getting rid of the ball in 1.5, 2 seconds, because he knew exactly where his guys were going to be, and he knew exactly where his guys needed to be in terms of being successful. So do I put this loss on the defense? Absolutely not. Could they have done a better job? Absolutely. Specifically on 3rd down, it seems like that's been their kryptonite. They cannot get off the field when it absolutely means something. You made a great comparison. It's like Pete Alonso. He can't hit the big home run when it absolutely means something, but when it's 4-1, 5-1, he'll hit that solo shot, and those statistics look pretty good. But in large part, I blame, the defensive struggles because of that ineptitude on offense. And obviously we saw Zach Wilson get going at some point. We saw a little bit of a movement. We saw even Elijah Moore get a couple targets downfield, but nowhere near where the expectations are, not only for Elijah Moore, but this offense as a whole. Corey Davis is still dropping balls. Michael Carter looks talented, but there's no consistent direction or game plan to really get him going, along with Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman. The tight end position. Obviously, I spend most of my time watching the Jets, but I don't think I've ever seen an NFL team with a worse tight end group than the current New York Jets right now. And then you kind of want to talk about the offensive line. There were times where they held up. They were looking better, and you were still missing throws. We're still getting pressured, and who's that lean on? Zach Wilson himself. We saw him miss some 3rd and 4, little 3-yard out behind the receiver, wide open screen to the right side, can't even get it all the way out there for him. But then you see him on a rollout, and he's hitting Jamison Crowder 40 yards downfield, 35 yards downfield. So you expect these types of growing pains through Wilson, but one thing that is quite concerning, and he's mentioned it in the media, is that he's aiming these throws too much instead of letting it rip, and it's causing him to either underthrow, overthrow, or just simply miss on these short balls. And, you got to be. We're not asking him to be Mac Jones. We're not asking him to check down, because I don't think he'll ever be a consistently successful quarterback if we ask that from him. He's a playmaker. He's a big play waiting to happen. But when you're in the National Football League, you have to bring some sort of consistency in terms of these small things, these small stuff. So kind of just breaking down both sides of the ball, kind of just talking about, the negatives, because I hate to say it, there were some good things. We stayed competitive, but it felt like from that pass, roughing the passer all the way on, the Jets really didn't have a shot. They did a couple things. They made it close, and even right before the half, me and you were talking, we're saying if they can go in the half and it's only a 3-7 point, 3 to 7 point game, they got a chance. And then in the fourth quarter, as naive as I am, I'm saying, oh, if the Jets can do something here, I'm going to wear my Jets jersey to work, blah, blah, blah. And obviously that didn't come to fruition. But a lot of negatives, the negatives definitely outweighed the positives, I'd say. But in terms of, not only defensively, but in coaching, I think this was the first game that we've seen under the Robert Saleh era in which he was extremely outcoached and out game planned for sure.
Yeah, the coaching aspect of the game started in preparation for it. And I'll start with the defense since I kind of talked about the offense already. Bill Belichick has a philosophy: take away, the number one or number two weapons that your opponent has and make them beat you. Without those guys, and you have to, utilize their lesser players. In the case of the Falcons, the Jets were handed a gift by their two best receivers not playing, Ridley number one and Gaze number two, and that really left the Falcons with two players really on offense. That was it. One being Pitts and two being Patterson. And after that, it was all no-name players that were either on the practice squad or probably wouldn't have seen the field if it wasn't for the injuries, other than Mike Davis, who's okay. Nothing more than that. So to me, as a defensive coordinator, my philosophy or my strategy would have been to take away one of those two guys, if not both. Someone's going to have a career day for us to lose. One of these no-name guys is going to have to catch 7 or 8 passes and put themselves on the map. If that happens, so be it. You tip your cap and, the best man or the best team won. But that's what my strategy would have been. Not only did we not take away one of those guys, we didn't take away either, and we had no answer for either one, and neither one of those guys were utilized any differently. Like, it wasn't like they came up with a new way to get those guys open. Quick slants to Pitts, isolation Pitts on linemen and then linebackers covering him in the flat. Patterson does it both running and receiving, and there really wasn't anything that they did any different. But the Jets never had an answer. It looked like they went into this game with they were going to play just a straight 8. Play a straight base defense, and then hold their own that way. But Belichick would have taken both of those guys out of the game, and no name, whatever his receiver is, would have had to been the one to beat you. That's what they would have done. The Jets didn't do that. So very poor coaching on the part of the defense. What are we doing with John Franklin Myers, who just got an extension? He's having a great year. Why is he covering Pitts on a crucial pass? I don't know, it was 3rd down or whatever, to turn into a touchdown. What is he doing covering Pitts? There was another play where Bryce Huff was covering either Patterson or Pitts. And again, that goes back, not only are we not taking these guys out of the game plan, we're giving them more to work with. So to me, the defense did an okay job, given the fact that they were on the field a long time, and they're young, and they're going against a potential Hall of Fame quarterback. But the coaching let the defense down. The coaching let these young players down. They didn't put these young defensive players of the Jets in the best position to win this game. By far, they did not do that. So that's on the defense. We can't get off the field on 3rd down. That's been a consistent theme. If we stop them on that late 3rd and 13, we're down 20-17. We get the ball back. Who knows what can happen? But again, we could not get off the field. So from a defensive standpoint, coaching I thought was awful. The players itself didn't do a bad job. Offense, I touched on. The other thing I'll add is we got to get that running game going. All I've heard is how the Shanahan style of offense, now LaFleur, is based off the run, play actions off the run, and we're averaging 50, 60 yards a game. And I realize part of that's because we find ourselves down and we have to change our game plan to an extent, but we've got to get that running game going because it's non-existent. And once we take that away, now we're putting it all on Zach again. Zach is struggling, but like I said before, we're not helping him out. We're not helping him out with the coaching, the game calling, the running attack, the blocking. We're not helping him at all. Enough hasn't been stated as far as the tragic death of Greg Knapp. He would have made a difference. This is a guy who's tenured, who has worked with guys like Steve Young and Peyton Manning, and he would have made a difference to a degree. Now we've got Matt Cavanaugh there, and I don't know exactly right now what's going on, but it hasn't shown yet as far as any type of benefit. But there's clearly too many young, inexperienced guys right now on the offense making these decisions, and you could see it. And like you said a little while ago, they're being completely outcoached on both sides of the ball. So with the offense, I'll just say we've got to get the run game going somehow, because until we do, the passing game will continue to sputter. Special teams has actually been pretty good. Amendola kicked 2 field goals. He did miss an extra point, but seems like nowadays in today's NFL, everybody is. The punt coverage has been pretty good. Tevin Coleman had a nice return of 65 yards, another one of 27. That looks like that's going to be his calling from here on out, because he's only getting 4 or 5 carries a game as a running back. So he might be a weapon, at least in returning. So the special teams was, I'd think, if we talk about bright spots, the brightest spot of them all. And again, if I had to probably go down the line and list which aspect of our team was I most disappointed in, it's coaching. For all the reasons I've already mentioned, the coaching in game and the coaching in preparation, not having a good scripted game plan, and not taking away at least one of those 2 weapons that the Falcons had, because after that, they had nothing. They had absolutely nothing, not even average players after that. And getting back to the defense real quick, can you name one player on the Falcons defense? After the game, I still can't. They did an okay job, but I'm saying is they didn't have anybody there. It was number 58. I don't know his name. He got in a few times because he wasn't being blocked. But other than that, even after this game, and the Jets only scoring 3 points in the first quarter, I still can't name you a player on the Falcons defense. Kudos to them. They won the game. They were the better team that day overall. But I'm saying this game was there for the taking. And it just didn't seem like our coaches prepared our young players enough for it. And the last thing I'll say, again, the officiating, that was an awful call. If that's not a sack, if that's not a clean hit, that got you a star back in the days when I played or watched. That got you Beast of the Week. And now it gets you a penalty. There was another roughing the passer call, excuse me, later on, where one of our guys rolled into Matt Ryan's legs. Yeah, and that nowadays, by the rules, that's roughing the passer. But 10 or 15 years ago, we would have been criticizing that one too. Ask Joe Namath. He got hit a lot harder than that, and nothing was called. But that's the game we live in now. You roll into the quarterback's legs, penalty. And apparently if you hit the quarterback in the numbers, that's a penalty too. But one thing you didn't mention that I want to stress too, it depends on who the quarterback is. I really wonder if that would have been a penalty if Wilson had been hit. It was Matt Ryan that was hit there. And if you watch enough games, you'll notice that the guys like Rodgers and Brady and Ryan and all the stars of today, veterans that might be going into Hall of Fame, they seem to get a little bit more protection from the refs. And as much as I respect those guys, you protect everybody, and everybody has the same rules. And I don't see consistency there at all from one game to the next. So overall, I would say I'm very disappointed in the coaching on all ends of our team and their lack of ability. They didn't put our young players, in the best position to win this game.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Both terms of, in regards to both officiating and coaching. One thing I want to touch on move on a little bit about the coaching is, I even said it on last week's episode. The reason, I was so confident heading into going into London, not going against the Atlanta Falcons, is I was confident in Saleh and I was confident in the rest of the coaching staff in getting this team prepared. That the outside noise of being in London and playing an international ball game, playing at 9:30, playing where the whole world's watching you and there's nothing else really going on. I thought that they were going to be able to live up to that hype, live up to that moment, and unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Do I think it? Do I think it was being in London? Do I think it was playing at 9:30? No, I just think it was just being completely out. And Arthur Smith, let's not forget, he's a rookie head coach too. So there's no excuses. He outcoached Saleh. That's okay. We're gonna, we got a rookie head coach, a rookie quarterback, and a rookie offensive coordinator. You have to expect these things. But as we go into this bye week, I think that this 2-week span before we play the New England Patriots in Foxborough could be the most important 2-week span of the season. And that, granted, do I think the New York Jets are going to be a better football team week 10 to week 18? Most likely. But this week 6 to week 9 stretch, 3 ball games that can definitely be had and be competitive in, but it's going to take consistency. It's going to take something. Saleh said it to the media that they're definitely going to kind of take a step back and not only look at how they game plan the whole game, but more specifically how they game plan these scripted drives heading into ball games, getting points on the board. So that's one thing as a fan, as a spectator, I expect to see when we go into New England. Granted, it's going to be tough. You're going against Bill Belichick again. You're going against that New England Patriots defense. Now you're in Foxborough, but we have to see some type of progress in terms of getting on the field and getting things going right off the bat. We can't have 6 plays ran in the first quarter, especially against the New England Patriots, because they're going to only get better and they're only going to adjust more and more as the game goes on. Last thing I'll say before moving on about the officiating is, pretty much repeat what I said earlier. League-wide, it's horrid. We've seen the Jets get beat a lot because of these bad calls. League-wide, it's horrid, but me and you, I think we both agree in saying this. The referees treat this team like the same old Jets. They always treat the Jets like it's the same old Jets. It seems like they never get a break. They never get a call. I think through 2 quarters of football, this past Sunday, the Jets had, I want to say, 6 to 7 penalties on them. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Falcons had none. You mean to tell me that the Atlanta Falcons ran 45 offensive plays in the first half and didn't hold once? Didn't illegal hands to the face once, didn't do anything. So it definitely seems like, I'm not the type of person to say, oh, this is rigged, this is that. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's definitely a pattern and an excusable the word's not even deficient. The word is, it's a disgrace watching how much impact these refs have on the game. And the most frustrating part about it, in my opinion, is there's nobody holding these guys accountable, and there's not only is there nobody holding these guys accountable, but they could probably care less about being held accountable and accountability, which is quite frustrating because it's week in, week out. It's never going to get better until this is actually addressed. And I think probably talk to fans across 31 other football teams across the nation, and they would have something to say in terms of the refereeing and how inconsistent and impactful it has been in a negative sense. So moving forward with that, we'll kind of save the New England Patriot prediction, or we'll kind of save the time in terms of talking about that game, considering it's not for another about 10, 11 days. We'll definitely do a show next week in terms of kind of highlighting and preparing for that game. But because we got the bye week, we're actually going to move on and kind of do a little change of pace. We got the New York Rangers starting the season tonight. Puck drops, I want to say, at 7:30 against the Washington Capitals. So, Dad, I'm going to let you get this. Obviously, you've been a Rangers fan for a long, long time. We've kind of discussed maybe, we're going up to New York in a few weeks. Maybe we'll go catch a game. Never caught a hockey game in person myself. But New York Rangers, puck drop tonight, 7:30 against the Washington Capitals. Not only your expectations for tonight, but the expectations for the season for this young Rangers core that I think could be pretty talented.
Okay, this is a team of change. To start with the front office, John Davidson is out. Gorton is out. Former coach David Quinn is out. So this is a start of a new era, more or less. Chris Drury was promoted, highly respected, to general manager. Gerard Gallant is now the Rangers coach. He's well respected. He's got a lot of experience. And from early returns, as far as the players go, it seems like they've welcomed the change. I get the impression that Quinn was kind of brought in to be the alter ego of what their prior coach was, which was Vigneault, who was brought in to kind of offset the coach before that, which was Tortorella. And I get the impression that David Quinn, maybe the reins were a little too tight, and maybe he was a little too much of a micromanager. And it seems like now the Rangers, the mindset of the team, it seems to be a little more relaxed. Not that Gallant is a pushover. He seems like the kind of guy that's going to give the players a little bit more leeway there, and especially some of the veteran players like Zibanejad and Panarin, who there were rumors in the past that Quinn did not have a good relationship. We were kind of surprised at the time when Quinn was terminated after just 2 years. And I think a lot of it had to do with the relationship he had with his younger players and with the star players as well. So starting right off, it's a season of change. And I think you'll see, hopefully, a lighter locker room and hopefully happier players in that sense. As far as personnel goes, the Rangers didn't make any real big, earth-shattering signings in the offseason, but what they did do is bring in a couple of low-key names that are going to change the aura of the fact that in the past the Rangers have been viewed as pushovers. In fact, the Capitals might be the team that expedited that by taking cheap shots, if you remember, at the end of last year against some of the Rangers star players, and there really wasn't much retaliation on the Rangers' part. So they've brought in a guy like Ryan Reeves and Barclay Goodrow, who you may not have heard of, but these guys have been brought in specifically now for those type of situations and to add muscle. And so when the other teams target guys like Zibanejad and Panarin and Lafreniere, these guys that you may not have heard of may play a big part as far as enforcers. So I think you're going to see a grittier team. I think you're going to see a team that's not going to take as much as the previous teams did. And that's why all these changes were made. As far as the coaching staff goes, Zibanejad has been signed to a new contract. That just happened. 8 years, I believe, 60-something million, which is a lot for hockey. So they're committed there. If you were a Ranger fan and you were looking for Jack Eichel to be signed as well, you can forget about that now. They can't bring both those guys in and then sign all their younger players down the road. It's really going to come down to this team, I think, has the ability, and I'll finish with this, they have the ability to compete for the third or fourth spot, for the playoff spot, either number three or the wild card. It's going to come down to their goaltending. It's going to come down specifically to Igor Shesterkin. This is really going to be his first full season as a starter. I think he was impacted last year by starting late. He no longer had Lundqvist kind of as that safety net in the background. He started off poorly. He played much better later on. But when one or two goals separates the best team in hockey to the worst, your goaltending has everything to do with that. And it's going to come down to, one, Shesterkin playing up to the level in which he's predicted to be, and two, the younger guys, Lafreniere, Kako, guys that were number one picks, not only for the Rangers, but overall, picking it up. I would have to say, especially Lafreniere, definitely disappointment last year, just 12 goals, 9 assists, number one overall pick, supposed to be the next Gretzky. So we're going to have to see a lot more of those guys and better goaltending. And if we get that, plus our third or fourth lines of enforcers pick things up physically, I think we can make the playoffs. We're going to have to knock a team like the Capitals or the Penguins out to get in. We're in such a tough division. You got the Capitals, the Penguins, the Islanders, the Devils, Carolina now, Columbus, the Flyers, and only 4 are going to make it, or 3 actually, in one wild card. And I'm not even talking about the Bruins and Tampa in the other division. So you're going to have to knock some good teams out to get into the playoffs, probably Washington, Pittsburgh, or both just to get in. And to do that, you're going to need Shesterkin to step up. You're going to need the younger players like Lafreniere to play to their potential. And you're going to need those third and fourth line guys. We got a great front six, but you're going to need those third and fourth line guys to pick it up this year as well. But if I had to make a prediction, I say the Rangers will compete for a playoff spot right into April. My heart says they will get in at the last spot, but my brain says the Rangers will just miss out on a couple of points of getting in this year. They'll just fall short, but they will compete for a playoff spot all year and should be exciting to watch in the regular season.
Yeah, no, as a younger fan, and I haven't spent as much time watching the New York Rangers. I think this season, especially, there's two things that I kind of have focused on, and that's obviously the goal, the play of the goalie, and two guys that I really got. Lafreniere is supposed to be the next Gretzky. Didn't do a lot last year, but a guy that from doing a little bit of research and reading, had a great, has ever since he's came to the United States. He's played out of his that's Panarin, and I think that could be a guy where he could play at an MVP level, and that's the type of guy that could cause the New York Rangers to get to the playoff spot. You talk about that tough division that they're in with the Penguins and the Capitals, and having to knock one of those teams out, maybe even both. It's going to take one of those two guys or to really step up and play at an elite level. And I think with a team that young, you can't really expect the world out of them. But I am excited. I am excited to see them play. I am excited to watch them compete, because a successful season, even like you said, if they're fighting all the way till April and they miss by a couple points, could mean a whole lot more going down the road. So obviously, Rangers puck dropping tonight. Knicks basketball coming at you in, I think, 6 or 7 days. We'll definitely touch on that here soon. Knicks had a pretty solid season last year, but I think this season they could be just as consistently good. I think between Thibodeau, between the young players, between the core of the veteran players we have, and some of the offseason additions, I think this team. I'm not gonna say they're a shoo-in for the playoffs. I'm not going to get my hopes up and say they're going to be a 4 or 5 seed again. But I think they're going to be competitive, because the East is getting nothing but better and better year by year. But I think the New York Knicks, with Thibodeau at the helm, we're here to stay in terms of at least playing competitive basketball, which is really all you can ask for after, 15, 16 years, outside of the couple years with Melo there, of pretty much just disappointing and, unwatchable basketball. So with that being said, guys, about 38 minutes in, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Obviously touched on the Jets, Rangers today. Dad did a great job of breaking that down, and did an even better job of pronunciating some of those names, I'll admit.
Capo Caco.
So guys, we'll definitely be back. Could be back as soon as this weekend, in terms of not only talking about the Jets, but maybe something happens with the Rangers. You talk about adding those types of guys. I wouldn't be surprised to see some punches thrown tonight, some flares. I know it's game 1, but you talk about retaliation. I want to see it right off the bat. So maybe we'll have something coming at you this weekend. If not, we'll definitely be back in 6 days to a week time talking about the Jets' upcoming matchup in Foxborough. And 3 weeks from now, we'll be getting prepped up to hit MetLife Stadium ourselves. So hopefully, guys, we'll have some special content coming there from either inside the stadium, outside the stadium, or just bits and pieces of videos and pictures that we can share to you guys and the rest of the fan base. So, guys, appreciate y'all tuning in. Rangers puck dropping tonight, 7:30. Don't miss it. And we'll be back next week for some more content.